I began taking ballet classes when I was a ballet class in the basement of the town hall of, the fire hall in Newmarket on a concrete floor when I was 5 years old. And I was taken there weekly to pick up my sister who was doing dance class. So I'm like the chorus line guy who followed his sister to dance class, and it was easier to leave me there than it was to find something for me to do because I was a kid with a lot of energy. And so that was the beginning of it. And when I must have shown some kind of musical talent or something. I was a pudgy little 5-year-old. It was not more than that. And I guess I had some coordination with legs and stuff, and the teacher felt that I should study somewhere where there were other boys studying. So that's after 2 years of being in Newmarket, I came to what was called the ballet division, which was the once-a-week kids at the National Ballet School, because there would be boys here, which in fact was not true at all. There may have been occasionally some other guys would be in a class of girls with me, but I was usually the only guy in the classes, and that sort of it became like an escalator. You just got on it and you stayed on it. And so the fire hall went to the once a week, went to joining the full-time school, and the full-time school goes to, helping out at the company in the back row of the peasants, and then you join the company, leave school early and join the company. Everything just sort of went on. So the actual decision to dance came late, because all I was doing was actually behaving really well. There wasn't any I saw Giselle and I wanted to be Giselle, that kind of thing. I wanted to be the prince. I was just going along. At that time, there was this, Grant Strati was working at the school, and there was a very creative movement in the Summer of Love. You're talking about 67, 68, there was this seniors who were, I was grade 5, grade 6, there were these grade 11, grade 12 people who all had hard bodies and were experimenting with sex and drugs and, everything. It was just all patchouli oil everywhere. We were on Jarvis Street and on Maitland, like in the process, people were out there with the buses and the Christians and it was wild, being around here. You might have had that too, And so Grant sort of got this sort of workshop sort of thing going. So as a very young kid, I saw senior students having this opportunity. So then eventually they graduate and you're moving up and it becomes your opportunity. The choreographic thing started there, and it was because I had done that Goldberg variations pas de deux that Veronica Tennant had seen it, and she was the one who asked me to do something for her, because once the workshops moved through the school and those people got into the company, they were a company event that started to happen. So they were available to me as a company member. And I guess it was after I think it was 1973, we did the first year of touring with Rudolph, and the next year there was a sort of push. David Haber, I think, might have been the director or co-director at that time, and felt there was this idea. Back then, it was called indigenous choreography. Like if you that we had to do indigenous work. And of course you can't call it that now. That isn't what indigenous is. But we were so white, and elite, that something indigenous was something we were doing and not. So we've learned. It moved through slowly and developed up to me doing the Washington Square. And then it was soon after that I went to Montreal, because to me it just wasn't moving fast enough. I remember being in the company for a couple of years, and one of the principal dancers, we were in London, and he took me out to dinner before a show in London, or when we had just gotten there, and he said, he said to me, I don't know whether you've decided to dance. And I'd been in the company for 2 or 3 years by that point, but I joined the company when I was 16, so at 19 I was being asked. So it made me think about it. I think actually later on when I went to Montreal is when I think I really decided that's when I felt I really took up the space that my body takes up, you know, even though I had been choreographing, I had been doing this and everything, you know, I was being a good boy and doing everything and the way you're supposed to. It really wasn't until I got my first kind of council grant to go and look at the world, mostly in Europe, and came back and then really realized that it wasn't a good fit any longer, that I had to go somewhere else. And Toronto was really not a great place. I'd done what there was to do there for now. And moved to Montreal, and everything really opened up for me there. The first 5 years in Montreal were probably the best 5 years of my life. And I ended up in Banff as the sole ballet choreographer, surrounded by 40 contemporary dancers from across the country with 6 composers and 5 contemporary choreographers. Christopher House was one of them, and Rachel was there as a sort of elder, and we had Todd Bolander for the first 10 days of it, and Robert Cohen, who was really the amazing one for the last 10 days of it. And that just completely opened everything up, because no matter what the assignment was, because it was a daily assignment situation, I was faced with people in bare feet, and they were a motley crew of men and women, and you were just thrown stuff. So you just had to work with what was in front of you and be vulnerable to an idea that you'd been given that day and collaborate with the composer. So it was a great thing, and it really, really was wonderful. The first piece I did in Montreal was called Genesis, because it was my first piece in Montreal, and I was trying to control the stage environment and put a 15 by 15 foot square in the middle of the stage, and I went, you're either in the square or out of the square. I was always terrified of the wings because they were so far away from the middle of the stage, and never knew how you could get anybody on stage. You know, it was all fine in the churches, but what do you do in a big theater and stuff like that? And then the next one was, the big one was In Paradisum with Michael J. Baker. And that, you know, suddenly turned the whole thing about what if I actually did something where guys could share with girls, that there would be the men in every role in it is male, female, except for one because of the partnering in it. And the minimalist music, I would try to do something that I felt was dramatic, but it all kept moving along so fast that it turned into something else, you know? In Paradisum sort of wrestled the stage for me about to learn about sort of the sweep of things and how to get things moving and enjoying taking up space when you really throw yourself at it and not just do a piqué arabesque which travels you maybe 2 feet, which was Washington Square was just arabesque. It didn't have a lot of sweep to it. Okay. So everything just sort of, I guess the upshot of all of this is just, it all developed along slowly over the years. Oh, we were doing Giselle. I got to do Albrecht once, which was not something that I cared to do, but I was a principal dancer and I had to do it. But while we were working on it, I went to UQAM because Jean-Pierre had done a piece with the students called Joe. And I looked at Joe and I went, God, if the Willies could come anywhere near the power of this faceless group, male, female, like you didn't care or anything like that. And I went, like, this is where we should be. You know, this is how great this should be. So it makes you, when you go back to Willie's, and I eventually got to Swan Lake and Snow Maidens and all that kind of thing. So how do you get that same Joe power to a corps of swans? You know, how do you get it to be a really dramatic force? So when it's called Swan Lake, it's about the swans, you know, it's about that world and that they're a powerful stage picture, you know. I don't I don't know whether being a director was probably the best and the worst decision I ever made. It sort of got me through 10 years of my life. It solidified my personal relationship with my partner at the time. You have to do that as a team, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have that sort of home support system. I was not, I was about the art. I wasn't about fundraising. I thought if I sort of bring it down to that I was also, when I left the ballet, I became a baker for a while. I went to the French Culinary Institute and studied artisan baking, and I realized as I was sort of alone in the bakery at 1 o'clock in the morning, shaping pecan cranberry loaf and mixing, sourdough and all that stuff, that my view of what I did as a choreographer was the same as a baker. In my community, I was trying to give people what they didn't know they wanted. And you can run any business trying to give people what they want, but it's not necessarily going to be the most creative way of running a business. You actually, and yet keeping an eye on, well, I might be able to kind of meet their needs and my needs at the same time. And so the first piece I did when Reed was leaving, he actually didn't have me down to do a piece in the next year. And I came into him, and I had been in my apartment, and the Four Seasons came on the radio, and I went, well, I've known the Four Seasons since I was about 7. And I thought, I bet you I could do a dance to that, and the audience probably knows that piece of music, so that's going to help that, because it's not like doing Miraculous Mandarin, which Reed said, go ahead, do that, that's fine. But I thought, okay, I probably have to think about this a little differently. So I did Four Seasons, and in fact, it was great, because it was the first piece I did, and it actually worked out. In 9 years, I made 5 full-length ballets, which were pretty galvanizing at the time they were doing it, but the company was also has a thing about as soon as that's over, they go immediately into the mode of what's the next season and what's my next role and if I'm getting, oh, I'm doing that ballet. Okay, who's my partner? Okay, which show? Okay, and so you're going, oh, fuck, It's really hard. You kind of get off on that kind of thing. And dancers kind of work at where your weaknesses are. They don't help you play to your strengths. They make you very aware of what your weaknesses are. But I don't think I was terrible at it. And in fact, there are a lot of people who worked for me who kind of miss a lot of the good stuff of my being there, which I think was that look, we're all in this together. We all have to go look this way, and we're going. I don't know what this is going to be. I don't rule dance. I serve dance. I wasn't a good king, but I was a pretty good priest, and I probably still am a good priest. That's sort of where that I'm trying to serve it. I'm trying to. I was in the position where I could do that, and because you don't get that position unless you're in that position, and so that was kind of presented. It's okay. There's these 3 Tchaikovsky ballets. They're the Tchaikovsky canon, and I had done Nutcracker with some success. And Swan Lake was one that I felt could use another look. It's the score I liked the best of the 3. Karen Kane was retiring. And I thought, if we get a new Swan Lake, we won't just sit around wishing it was Karen Kane. And I said that to the search committee. I said that, the fact is I'm taking over this company at a time that Reed is taking 3 or 4 of the best people that he developed, and Karen Kane's retiring. Okay? And there wasn't that much money. The company went down to like 45 people. I was really up against quite a lot of stuff. We didn't have 24 swans. So I had to do a Swan Lake with, I think there are 20 white swans and 18 black swans. I don't think when you see it, you think the stage isn't full, because I was able to do more, Some of the best supporters that I had were Don and Gretchen Ross, who are getting this in the Hall of Fame this year. They made Swan Lake possible. They were the first people who came forward. They've been there for me a number of times, and I understand that's necessary, but also the wonderful thing about them is they're really hands-off. They kind of understand that, and you don't get that from everybody. There were a lot of them who were just really into the fact that you're probably going to destroy ballet for us here because you're a contemporary choreographer, and I don't think I did. I think some of the best and hardest ballet they have to dance is still My Snow and My Flowers. They're hard. They're hard. You have to be really together to dance my work. Every dance should make the dancer a better dancer and the choreographer a better choreographer, and I get very disappointed when I see that the dancer hasn't been pushing, the choreographer hasn't made much difference to their own career. So there are certain things that I have a bit of psychosclerosis around some of this hardening of the attitudes. You have to you have to take it forward every chance you get. I'm looking to serve in the best way possible, and it seems at the moment the best way to do that is I have a very close relationship with the Arts Umbrella in Vancouver, and I have a good relationship here at the National Ballet School, which truly came out of nowhere. I did not expect to enjoy teaching as much as I do. It was never anything that I thought I would necessarily want to do. I don't know whether I could teach a company. Companies are really hard. Like I said, dancers look for your weaknesses and don't help you with your strengths very much. So I don't know. And I have this great relationship with the Citadel where I can actually do the pieces that I can't do anywhere else. So I can go in more theatrical and sort of narrative in different ways. Work with older people like with Evelyn and work with Zhenya, who's not, the profile of what you consider a dancer is, but is so effective, and so I go, okay, if I can do that, that's great. And there's always going to be more older dancers wanting to keep working.
You want her, you need her, and yet you don't believe her when she says her love is dead. You think she needs you.
I think we still need priests. I think we still need, I don't want to call it adults, but it needs, it's sad Grant's gone. It's, because he had a way of doing that, and, I have to step up. So, hopefully I have a few years to figure it out, but I do feel a responsibility within it, but I don't feel I want necessarily to have it destroy me, because it had almost done that.